Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Cookin with Collin. Today we're going to be making something simple and easy, chocolate-covered strawberries, but with a little bit of a twist. Let's get to it. Okay, so for these we're going to need some strawberries from the farm store, some bowls for stirring the chocolate from Vista Market, and also I got this little tool to take off the tops of the strawberries from the farm store, but you can also just use a regular knife. And something to stir the chocolate, I got this little whisk at the farm store, but you can also just use a spoon. Now for the part of the video with that little spin that I was talking about, we're going to be trying 3 different kinds of chocolate and seeing what works best. So for one, we have this bar of chocolate from the farm store. I already took off the wrapper because I was snacking on it, sorry. Some Hershey bars from the Vista Market, and some regular semi-sweet chocolate chips. So we're going to try all of these the same method of melting them and then see what works best on the strawberries. Let's go. All right, so first up we're going to be using the bag of chocolate chips. I'm just going to take one of my bowls, pour a good amount in here because we want enough to be able to either dip the strawberries or spread it on there, but either way you're going to want a good amount on there. I'm going to put a little more in here. You don't want to quite fill the bowl because you will need room to stir it up later on. So we'll go ahead and set that to the side, get the other chocolates ready. Now for the Hershey's chocolate, this stuff breaks up pretty easily, so I don't think I'll be needing any kind of knife or anything. As you can see, it already kind of started to fall apart before I even took it out. So you just want to break it into reasonably small pieces. If you get too big of pieces, it won't want to melt quite so easily. So I'm just going to take my fingers and just break this up as much as I can. Maybe even smaller chunks. So you can always just take them, break them apart. And you're going to want to do this when the bar is room temperature. I made the mistake of refrigerating mine the first time I did this, and it ended up taking a lot longer to melt the chocolate because it was colder already. So just make sure it's room temperature, even though you'll get chocolate all over your fingers like I have already. So this is one full bar. I'm going to go ahead and put a second one in to try to have the bowl a little more full so that there's plenty to go on the strawberries. Again, they break apart really easily. Sometimes they fall apart before you even open the wrapper. Okay, so just keep breaking this apart. There we go, we're getting a good amount in there now. Remember, you want it in nice small chunks so that the heat gets throughout the bowl of chocolate more, because the bigger the chunks, the harder it's going to be to melt all of it. So, right, there we go. That's 2 bars of Hershey's. We'll see how much that yields, and in the meantime, let's go get the last one ready. Okay, now on to the last kind of chocolate. This is going to be the giant bar of chocolate that I got from the farm store. Now, this stuff is a lot thicker than the Hershey bar, so it might not be quite as easy to break up. You can still do it with your fingers. It just requires a bit more force. There's also much darker chocolate, so I've never used dark chocolate for melting, so we'll see how that compares to the rest. You know, doing it by hand is going to take a while, so I'm going to go ahead and chop these and come right back. Okay, so there we go. The bar is all chopped up. Now I'm just going to add it into the bowl here. Careful if you're using a cutting board, don't want to get chocolate all over your counter. As you can see, this kind of split up into more splinters than the nice chunks that we had before, but that's okay. I'm just going to gather what fell onto the counter. Don't worry, my counter is clean. And there we go. Let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Okay, so for this next step, for the sake of time, I'll just be showing how to do it on one of the kinds of chocolate, but the process is going to be the same on all 3 of them, so just follow the same steps. So what we're going to do now is take our bowl. I'm going to start with the chocolate chips, and all you're going to do is pop it in the microwave for 20 to 30 seconds at a time. Take it out, stir it, and then pop it back in. Keep doing the 20 to 30 second intervals until the chocolate is melted. But it's very important to stir it so that the chocolate doesn't burn on the bottom of the bowl or at the top. So let's go ahead and pop. I'm going to go ahead and do 30 seconds on the timer, and we'll see how it is in 30 seconds. Okay, the first 30 seconds is done. Okay, so as you can see here, the chocolate chips are still entirely solid, but they do feel warm, so we're going to go ahead and pop it back in for another 30, and just keep repeating this process until they are melted. So another 30 seconds on the clock. Okay, we're up to a full minute, and some of the chips are starting to get a little bit melty, but not quite to the level that we want. As you can see, some towards the bottom are melting, but it's still very thick. So we're going to want to keep going until all of the chocolate chips are like that. So I'm going to go ahead and skip towards the end, and we'll compare the different kinds of chocolates. Okay, so here we have the result of our microwaving. On the left here, we have the Hershey bar, the chocolate chips, and the dark chocolate bar from the farm store. Now, as you can see, you can just tell visibly the levels of darkness in the chocolate. For the Hershey bar is milk chocolate, the chocolate chips were semi-sweet, and then we have the dark chocolate. And surprisingly, they actually all took the same amount of time to melt. With the amounts that I put in these bowls, each of them took 1 minute of microwaving in 30-second intervals, and then I did 40 more seconds in 20-second intervals. So 30, 30, 20, and 20, and they're all looking quite nice. I will say that the dark chocolate is definitely the thinnest of the three. As you can see in the other two, they kind of left the swirls from when I was stirring it because of how thick they are, whereas the dark chocolate is the most fluid of the three. So just in general, depending on what you're melting chocolate for, that might be something you want. It might be something you don't want. But either way, regardless of which one you use, they all dip pretty nicely for the strawberries. I just dip mine directly in there, but depending on how much you want on your strawberry, you can dip it however you want, obviously. Or what I've seen some people do is just scoop it up in a spoon and then drizzle it on strawberries. It's up to you, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just dipping mine. And then the last one. Now, the only problem with the thinness of the dark chocolate would be sometimes, depending on how thin you have it, it could fall right off the strawberry and not stick very well, but this has been sitting out for a little bit, so it's gotten a little bit thicker since it was done microwaving, so it's hardened up a little bit, so it's easier to dip. And there you have it. 3 different kinds of chocolate, all melted the same way with the same amount of time, and they're all looking very good. So make what you will of these results. This is all, again, a matter of preference. I will say the chocolate chips do taste a little more bitter because they do have that half dark chocolate in there. I'm willing to bet the Hershey's will be sweeter and the dark chocolate will be much more bitter, but it all depends on your preference of chocolate and how it mixes with the strawberries. But that does it for this episode. That concludes this episode of Cookin' with Collin. Hopefully you learned something new that you can enjoy in your own kitchen. If you like these videos, make sure to stay tuned next month for the next episode. And if you have any comments or suggestions for the next video, you can make sure to send them to my email right here. And as always, have fun, stay safe, and happy cooking. Bye!